This is Saskia, and this is Note to Self, your weekly dose of everything that's simply too long to text. Consider this your personal invitation into my inner circle, where I share my thoughts, feelings, and quiet reflections that usually live inside my Notes app. Thanks for joining me. Hello, my wonderful listeners. Welcome to Note to Self. Excited to have you here for another week. It was such a busy week this week, guys. And I never do this. I committed to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 days of plans. I do not do that. I am so wrecked. I am so socially tapped out. But I felt like my cup was so full. It was so many beautiful people that I was seeing. But I was just this morning woke up and was so wrecked. And I just feel super out of it. But then I weirdly was feeling very creatively inspired this morning, which was nice, a nice change. Trying to give myself more time to be able to come up with creative thoughts. And I actually do find I get my best creative thoughts when I'm at the gym, probably because it's the only time my brain is switched off. But yeah, this week was truly just spending a lot of time with people. And you realize, I think people that don't know me very well, I am definitely probably more of an introvert, which I think for a long time I always thought I was an extrovert because I'm bubbly and like to chat and, will like to go out and do things. And I'm not antisocial, but it was my therapist that posed it to me where she said, well, how do you recharge? And I said, people recharge from being around other people. And she was like, yeah, that's an extrovert. They get energy from being around other people. And I was floored by that sentiment. I could not believe it. I was like, wait, what? I thought everyone had to go home and be alone to get recharged and find energy, which is exactly what I have to do. I need multiple days at home doing absolutely not talking to anyone. And then I'm able to feel recharged. But it's finding that balance. And I do find that when the weather starts to get warmer, guys, weather, we always talk about it in the intro. Here we go again. I can't help myself. When it does start to get warmer, it does make me more energized. And I guess that's that idea of living seasonally, where you slow down more in the winter and then, you're more wanting to be out and about in the summer. Shout out to one of my favorite yoga studios in the city, SkyTing. I feel like their classes are very seasonally based, which I really love. The summer classes tend to be more fast-paced and active and opening, and the winter classes are slower and bringing yourself more inward. And I really love that type of yoga practice to go with the different seasons that you're in. But yeah, my week was really spent with friends, and then I've been diving deep into Claude, the AI tool. I was always a ChatGPT person, but my company has slowly started to get us to switch over to Claude. And wow, guys, gotta say, it's amazing. It's so much more creative, I've found, and it's really interesting. It doesn't just feed you the answers. It makes you kind of think about it. And I saw a friend this week who's been doing a ton of research into AI just generally, and she was saying one of the most important things you should do when you're training an agent is making sure it questions or at least gives you, devil's advocate, because eventually all of the agents will just be there to please you. So scary, right? So one friend actually trains hers to always contradict her, and she was saying that this other friend was yeah, have it play devil's advocate. So it's not always saying, that's the greatest idea ever, because then you're just never going to get anywhere. But I've been using it a lot to help build out my podcast strategy and help with what I'm doing every single day and how to pitch the podcast and things like that. And it's been so unbelievably helpful. So highly encourage people to try it. I'm going to start an AI course a friend sent me. It's 4 hours. And she said it really helped her kind of get the basics of how to set these agents up. And my mentor at work said to me, he was this is when the internet started, and the people who got into the internet early were just so far ahead. So listeners, if you're out there and you're not using this, or go take a course. I've been using it forever, but there's not forever because it hasn't been around that long, but I've been using it it's extensively the last year or so. But there are definitely some courses because there's a lot of nuances to it, and it's a far more powerful tool than you realize. if you can set it up correctly. You can have it automate different systems for you if you're running your own business. Incredible. So that was the other part of my week. And the third part of my week was really just deep in the Artemis II mission, guys. Oh my God, so deep. Originally, when I first started following this, so funny, my algorithm was clearly in a different place because we were out for dinner with some of my girlfriends, and one of them was like, has anyone been seeing all the Artemis videos? This was like maybe a few days after they'd taken off. She's like, I can't help but cry. And I was like, what are you getting? Because I was like, all I'm getting is videos about the toilet and how it works on the spaceship, and that it had broken and luckily they were able to fix it. She was like, what are you getting? So I had to change up my algorithm because I was like, this is not inspiring and we need to make it more inspiring. But I started to obviously get more of the deeper videos, which was great. But I was thinking, like, if there was 3 things you had to take to space beyond like all the things that actually you're provided to survive, like 3 things that were, I guess it would be possessions. Like, what would it be? And I'd love to hear what people's answers are because I was trying to think about that. And I immediately thought, this ring, if you're on video, it's this ring I always wear. It was my grandmother's. It's super important to me. Probably a journal and a pen. Does the journal and pen count as 2? I'm going to say it counts as 1. And then the third thing, I don't know. That's a hard one. If I had a dog, maybe my dog. It could be like a cute little space dog. Oh my God. Kind of like in Project Hail Mary, Rocky. Like, could I take Rocky? Could Rocky be real? And I'll take Rocky. Okay, those are my answers. The ring, a journal, and a pen as one answer, and Rocky or dog. So any type of like cute little friend, a furry friend, or Rocky is not furry, but you know what I mean. But beyond that stupid question, I really have been struggling to kind of articulate how the whole mission has made me feel. And I don't know if others feel this way. I think it's the vastness of it all. It makes you feel really insignificant. But at the same time, it really makes me question, again, that question I've been coming back to a lot is like, why are we all here? And I think when I see images from the ship of Earth and the moon's surface, and then they've taken all these other images of our planetary system, the different planets, in like the clearest way we've seen them, there's just this immense sense of unknown. And I think I really struggle with the unknown at times. And I think part of me was, again, speaking to friends, being like, I would never want to do that. And I'm like, I think I would like love to see it, because I wonder if it helps you really grasp the vastness of the universe. Because I don't know, I feel like other people probably feel this way when you look up to the stars and you're having this moment and it's like everything feels so unimaginably big, and it's so hard to grasp your place in this whole universe that we know nothing about and what is out there. And it just starts to make my mind just is boggled. And I wonder if the astronauts going up there, it gives them more of a sense of answering that question and what this vastness all means, because they can see it and they can breathe it in. But it kind of reminded me of something, and people are going to laugh at this as I'm comparing a space mission to something so stupid. Just stay with me. Stay with me here. So it kind of reminds me of Burning Man. It is not the same, clearly. Going to Burning Man, something you choose to do and put yourself in, is not the same as a space mission. But I felt this uneasiness because I didn't know what it would be like. And I've not had this before. Going to different countries, I don't ever feel uneasy. Like when I went to India, I'd never been to India before. I didn't have uneasiness. Or other countries that I've been to, Brazil, whatever it was, I didn't feel uneasy. Because I think there's always some, sense or markers of familiarity is what I'm trying to get to. I mean, I'm sure some places seem very different, but it's all this Earth. We're all one, right? But I guess Burning Man's also on Earth too. But there's something about it that felt really different. And I couldn't mark anything as tangible. I think all I'd seen were images, but then a lot of the images don't really do it justice. I'd never really seen what it was like at night. I didn't really understand how it worked. And I think I just had this immense sense of anxiety, and I was having a lot of dreams about it, trying to figure out what it was going to be like. And it definitely created a lot of anxiety, and I struggled to let go in the experience. But I would say that reflecting on it now, thinking about going back, I feel so much more confident. I know exactly what to expect, and I can understand, how it's laid out. I like to know how to get around. And I think whenever I go to a new place, I immediately pull up the map. And to be fair, before I see the map, sometimes I do get a little discombobulated in a way. But once I see a map and can position myself and kind of understand where I'm going, then I feel a lot more settled. And maybe that's why when I think about the universe, how can you place yourself in something that's so endless? So it always makes I just have these thoughts that I can't even have answers to. So that was my similarity to what the astronauts did. Guys, going to Burning Man was intense. I kind of felt like I was on Mars at times. So astronauts, hit me up if you want to discuss this. I can relate, we're vibing. But anyways, back to the moon mission, what is actually serious. So I was looking at this up. So only 28 people have ever gone to the moon or went around the moon on space missions, right? The 4 astronauts that recently went, and they did the lunar flyby and then went to the far side of the moon, which no humans have ever gone to. And then there was the Apollo program that ran from 1968 to 1972, and there was 24 different astronauts that were a part of that program that traveled to the moon, and 12 of them landed on the surface. Obviously, the famous, story we all know that people believe was shot in a movie studio, which I don't understand that, but I have not looked into it enough, but I don't think so, guys. It seems a bit crazy, a bit far-fetched for me. And I was thinking that's such a unique experience. 24 people. That's wild. It's so wild when you think about it. And I started to wonder if the astronauts who've seen this and who've been able to have this experience, if it did give them this sense of why we're here because of the context they now have. And I think, again, I had said if I could see this vastness, I feel like it would give me more clarity. So I wanted to hear what these astronauts, their initial takeaways, the ones that just came back. So I listened to the remarks from the recent Artemis crew, and it was their first press conference, speaking with, I think their names are Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, probably fucked that up, and Jeremy Hansen. Anyways, you could see when you listened to this, it was a live stream they did. You can find it on YouTube. You could see that they were really still processing many of the lessons and the takeaways from this mission. They even said that. They're like, I think a lot of what we're feeling, we're still taking it all in. But there's 2 things that really stuck with me. The first words were from Christina. And she said, I quote, "What struck me wasn't just necessarily Earth. It was the blackness around Earth. Earth was just this lifeboat hanging undisturbedly in the universe. I know I have not learned everything that this journey has to teach me. But there is one thing I know, and that is, planet Earth, you are a crew." What is this? So she described what a crew was as a group of people who are in it together all the time, no matter what. That is living together every minute with the same purpose, that is willing to sacrifice silently for one another, that they give grace, they hold each other accountable. A crew has the same cares and needs, and a crew is inescapably, beautifully, dutifully linked. And that's what she described as a crew. And I thought that was so, so poignant, which brings me to the next point. The second was from astronaut Jeremy Hansen, who shared 3 of the human experiences that stuck with them. And he felt like these human experiences seemed to be what a lot of the world were getting drawn to. Because there's the science, there's all of that, which is wonderful, and you can find that everywhere. But he said he felt like people kept coming back to this human experience. And the 3 areas of the human experience that he spoke about was gratitude, joy, noting that sometimes we all fall off the joy train, but we should all be committed to getting back on the joy train. And 3, love. So gratitude, joy, and love. And he closed by saying, he pulled the other astronauts, they were all sitting next to him, then they all stood up next to him. He said, looking at the four of us and me sharing these human experiences of joy, gratitude, and love, and how these human experiences resonated with you all. And if you think about it like this, they are a mirror. And if you like what you see, then look a little deeper, because this is all of you. And I really felt like this question of purpose that's been coming up a lot for me recently, I found it so kismet when I listened to this, because I felt this question was answered in a way. And I think what Christina and Jeremy said is what life is about. This pursuit of gratitude, joy, and love, and looking at our earth and the people on it as a crew. We're the same. We power this planet together. And with all this divisiveness right now on our planet, I felt like this message was so needed. And there's been a lot of messages of togetherness in the last 6 months especially, but this was such an interesting time. And when I think about the space mission itself from this lens, it does make everything feel a little less vast and a little more defined. And that maybe you don't need to know what the extent of the universe is, because I mean, no one knows that, but it's okay to have that be this unknown. And the anchor in the unknown is what Christina said, is the lifeboat, which is Earth. In all this vastness, the lifeboat is Earth. Because it really can feel super overwhelming when you start to think about it. And I am now reminding myself that we're all on this lifeboat. And I loved that visual she gave of just like the vastness, the blackness all around Earth. And then Earth's just there, this rich color that's sticking out in this vast, endless blackness that we don't know anything about. It's kind of wild. But we do know one thing, that we are this lifeboat and we are hanging onto this and it's giving us life, and we should treat it as such, and we should show up for each other in that way. And I think that message of like the human experience of continuously reminding ourselves what's important, and that we're all a part of the crew that is powering Earth, sometimes destroying it too, guys. Let's not forget that. But we all contribute and we're all equal. And our meaning is the pursuit of gratitude, joy, and love. And when there's people out there that are making us feel otherwise, and our leaders that are not leading with that, we have to remind ourselves that we can be better, and that we should, that to me is what the meaning of life is. Guys, it just feels so big. It just feels so important. It feels like a really big moment in our history. And the way those two people spoke, Jeremy and Christina, I was like, damn, those words will be stuck with me forever. And what that must be like. No wonder why they're still processing it. And I love that Christina noted that, like, I've not even begun to learn all the lessons that I've probably learned from this experience. And it must be pretty destabilizing seeing that as well. Because maybe seeing the vastness is hard. But as Christina said, what anchored them all was Earth. And they all said that once they were up there, all they wanted to do was go home. So there is something to that. And maybe instead of, focusing on the vastness, it's focusing on what we do know. It's a big topic, guys. God, I'm processing it as I go. But look, we're moving on, because there's not much more I can say about that. But it's fucking fascinating, and I'm excited to see what more we will learn in space. And maybe one day, I don't want to be like Katy Perry, guys, and go up there. I also think it's an absolute waste of money. We don't all need to go up there. Let the scientists do their thing and then just like tell us what it's like. But I find it fascinating. But this, moving on to my topic at hand, why we're really here, because I'm not a scientist. But we have another installment of, drum roll please, Ask Me Anything advice segment. So thank you for a few listeners who submitted some questions. I appreciate you. You are helping me out, and I love this segment. I hope you guys will find the advice helpful. I have 2 questions that I'm going to be focusing on today, so I might as well just kick it off. Question 1. So a listener wrote in and said, I've had crushes my whole life. Ever since I was little, I've had a crush on a man, whatever, a guy. I'm now at an era in my life where I haven't had someone to think about for a few months. I'm finding myself feeling really bored and aimless and unsure what to even think about. It's very freeing, but equally a crazy brain pattern to overcome. Do you have any advice on what to do when I have no one to think about? This one's a hard one when I was thinking about kind of the advice to give. I do think we can all relate. I mean, we definitely can all relate to thinking about a crush. I don't think we can. And it really does fill your mind. And it also has this sense of excitement that it's really hard to let go of that. So I can see why wanting to always have like a crush to think about is kind of addictive because you're addicted to the dopamine. So first of all, you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you. It's totally normal to feel that way. But one thing I can share is that I remember starting probably in my teens, maybe it was even younger, probably my first crush maybe. God, I think I was in 4th grade when I had my first crush. I remember him. He was this cute guy who went to my primary school and he was a few years older than me and I had such a crush on him. But I think I remember this story of like someone came up to me in primary school and was like, this person like knows you have a crush and he also has a crush and like he wants to meet you at the front of school at the end of the day. And I like waited at the front of school and he never came. And I think it was like a prank these girls were playing on me. It was awful. I've spoken to my therapist about that because I'd blocked the memory out. But your first crush, it sticks with you. But anyway, so it must have been earlier than my teens. I think it must have been up until my late 20s. And I would go to sleep most nights like fantasizing about the person I had a crush on. Not like sexually, but like made up encounters or running into them on the street and what would I say and romantic dates. Like I swear to God, my life was lived in my head as a movie. And it was always that kind of like being saved by that. Like I distinctly remember this stupid memory of like I fell into a hole. This was when I was really like much younger. And like the guy I had a crush on would save me out of this hole. How insane is that? I think I watched too many Disney movies as a kid, guys, honestly. But I just remember that was always how I would fall asleep and it would like help me fall asleep. And I was trying to pinpoint when it changed. Because I do think probably in my 20s, you start just have more shit to think about. So it had to have been sometime then. And then the older you get, the more responsibilities you have and, your brain develops and you just don't think about it as much. Because like prior to meeting Jeffrey, I don't ever remember doing that. And I feel like probably other things in my life, like I said, became more important. So the person I had a crush on wasn't like totally top of mind all the time like that. So why I brought it up is like, I wonder if there's like this transition that you're going through where other things in your life are just becoming more important. So that's taking the focus. And I think that's a great thing. And it's growth. It's how it should be. Because ultimately you don't want your mental space taken up by, a crush of the month or if it's a long-term partner, of course you're going to think about them, but that's not what you should be thinking about all the time. Like you're an individual human. So it's something that likely I think is you're going through this growth. And I thought of this reference recently that I watched. So stay with me. I have been watching Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Love that show. I've binged the entire show in like the last 6 months and I'm up to date now. I don't know what to do. I've been watching it for so long. But one of the women in the show in the last 2 seasons, her name's Brittany. Brittany? It's Brittany. God, fuck. What a bad name. Sorry. So she's the perfect example of someone who spends all her time thinking about the guy she's dating to the point it's destroyed her relationships with her daughter. And I'm sure there's so much more to her than this, but it's just something that I've noticed. Seemingly by the end of the season, she's started to realize that and that like she can't be focusing so much on this person she's dating and trying to rebuild the relationship with her children. But she seems to still be dating this dude. But what I'm saying is like, it's so heartbreaking because you're just seeing this woman who's giving this man so much power over her. And it's like, all she thinks about it. So exhausting. And just like, you get so annoyed at it as a viewer. And this is obviously like the far end of that type of thinking. And that is clearly not where you are. But I thought it's an interesting thing to reflect on if like, we continue down this path of prioritizing other people before us, look where it can kind of get you. But ultimately, I think I really like tangible advice. This is why you wrote in. I'm not a therapist, but these are things that I think might be helpful if it was me. So I thought about what I would do. And I was like, this is what I came to. When you're feeling bored, I would fill that with something that brings you joy, which could be anything. A creative project, cooking, watching your favorite TV show or movie, or reading your favorite book, working out, being in nature. I think using that time to dedicate back to yourself. Maybe you could even start like a course, the AI course that I mentioned, or something online and learn something new, take up a class, pottery, like there's so many different things. The time that was spent thinking about someone else, instead of feeling like you don't really know what to do with that, I think give it back to yourself and start to see what that brings for you. And it will probably address the aimlessness that you're feeling because it's giving you something to work towards and you're bettering yourself and something that's giving back to your soul. So number one, do that. Number two, I know everyone says this, but journal. When feelings come up, just start writing. And sometimes when I don't even know what to say, I literally will write down, I don't know what to say like a million times until something comes to me. But really journaling works. And I'm not perfect at it. I either go through stages where I don't journal at all, and I definitely feel it. And like right now I'm in one of those stages. I think it's because like I write my podcast a lot every week and I write a ton of notes in, so it's very cathartic, but I need to get back into just like journaling raw feelings because it really does help. And I think again, when you're feeling this boredom or emptiness, just getting whatever's in that emptiness out on paper. And I have some prompts that I think would be that you could ask yourself, because there's clearly something there behind that emptiness. So you could say, what have you been avoiding thinking about by thinking about someone else? So what's underneath that? Because now that's gone, there's always something there. These are always opportunities for growth. That's how I see everything in life. Number two, what would you do with that mental space if you gave it entirely back to yourself? That could be your question that could be the question to get answers for what you want to do as part of question one. My point number one about going and giving something back to yourself. And then ask yourself, is the boredom the absence of someone, or is it the presence of yourself? That's a big question, and there could be a lot there to it. And of course, if you got a therapist, take your answers to your therapist. They're the professionals here. But they could like give some very illuminating answers to what you're feeling in this moment and helping you guide yourself through it. And then I have two more things that I would suggest. In this space, create moments of joy with the people you love. See your friends, lean on them, fill your time with joyful moments with the people you love. That time is so precious, so why not give it back to yourself and the people who actually show up for you every day instead of filling it with someone else? And finally, be kind to yourself. Have patience. I think this pattern will change without you even realizing it. And just surrender to this discomfort you're feeling right now and trust that it will pass. And oftentimes what lies in this discomfort is, in my experience, at least whenever I'm feeling discomfort, is there's an opportunity for growth. And there's usually something better waiting on the other side. And just as a side note, when you do have a crush again, because you will, and you are inevitably thinking about them, don't feel bad. It's totally normal. Just remember everything else that is important to you and all these things that you created in that space, and don't lose that to go back to that same pattern of thinking if it's something that you don't want to dive back into. If you're not bothered by the pattern of thinking, go crazy and you're just trying to find somewhere to, fill the space you have right now, but maybe you'll learn something else in that space too. And good luck. You'll be fine. Message me if you've got follow-ups. I'm always down to chat. Now, pivoting a little bit. Second question. So I'm moving into my boyfriend's apartment next month. We've been together for a year and I'm so excited, but I'm also a little nervous. It's his space and I don't want to overstep, but I also want it to genuinely feel like home for both of us. How do you navigate that? Girl, I have been there, but I was the one who had the apartment, so I will give you some context. So for those who are new here, Jeffrey, who is my partner of, we've been together. God, we nearly been together 4 years. That's crazy. Oh no, 3 years. Never mind. Anyways, he moved into my apartment in New York at the start of 2025. He had been living out in LA, but mainly he was subletting because he left New York around in COVID and he sold all his stuff and he moved out to the West Coast. So he was always kind of just like bopping around. So he didn't have a lot of stuff. So it was easy for him to move back here. So he really just had a few suitcases, and then he had a storage unit in LA. And I remember we had been doing long distance, so we were always kind of jumping back and forth between the two places. But so when he officially moved in, I don't even think I gave it the space, which I really should have. I was just like, yeah, he's just staying for an extended amount of time. And I remember I cleared out half of my entrance closet. Didn't even give him my main closet. I'm so mean. And I was like, okay, here's half your closet. Poor thing didn't even have drawers. And I was like, shit, I should probably order some drawers for this man. But to be fair, I'd never lived with a partner. And this was my first solo apartment. So I was really tied to it. And it was the first place I moved into for my second chapter in New York. Again, for those who haven't been here before, I lived in New York from 2015 to 2020. I left and went back to Australia, where I'm from. And then I came back to New York, started 2023. So for my phase 2, my parents are also American and Canadian. So that's why my accent is a bit of a mix. I remember the place never really felt like ours. And that was definitely my fault, because I just didn't really make it welcoming for him. So I do think now we're in our new place, which is, we signed the lease together. It was important for us to really build it as our home. And reflecting back, I think the things we've done now are things that might be helpful for you, and probably things I should have done in that circumstance. So I'll give a few pointers. First of all, I don't think you should be scared to overstep, honestly, because ultimately this is your apartment now, and you should share what you need to make it feel like your home too. You don't want to not say anything and then have resentment build, because that definitely happened in our situation. And I would suggest sharing how you feel openly, that maybe you're nervous and you don't want to overstep, but you want it to feel like your home. And I feel like your partner will only be, your boyfriend will only, I say partner all the time. It's like a very Australian thing, but I know that Americans don't always do that. But anyways, we're pivoting. I'm off track. I'm coming back. But your partner ultimately should be open to that. And I think it's better to set that expectation than bury those feelings, because we know burying feelings never works. So as part of that, I would take time to discuss what you both want to do with the apartment. Adding to the first point, you're bringing all your things together. So maybe you discuss what you both want to keep, things you might want to replace together, and purchase something new that's both yours. That was something that we did a lot in my new place. So slowly we've been replacing some items that I didn't really like, or he didn't like. Most of the stuff we are okay with, but it's been fun to pick little things that are ours together. We got a new dining table and a new coffee table and some art, and it can be little things. There's also pieces that just didn't work in the new space. And it's been nice because it's really felt like we're building this home together. And I think what was also good is we've been able to get a storage unit and put things in it that maybe didn't work in this space, or stuff that we didn't want to have here, but maybe didn't want to let go of. And I think that's a good way to make more space for the two of you, because I don't know where you live, but if you do live in New York, you have a limited amount of space here. So props to you if you live somewhere where you have a lot more space. Really jealous of that. This was something that is kind of, I don't know, could work, but I think it could be interesting, is get a notebook. And I would start writing down your expectations for living together and how you want to manage household things and ensure that you're working together as a team. And this may not be part of your question really, but I thought I'd throw it in there because I'm passionate about this. But I think a great book to read together is called Fair Play. And I'll link the Fair Play episode I did last season, because I think this is such an amazing book to read, to really set yourselves up for the equal distribution of labor that it takes to run a home and the expectations behind each task. And I'll give you a high level just recap for those who do not know the episode. Fair Play was written by Eve Rodsky. She's a lawyer who specializes in organizational management. And she undertook a study that asked the simple question, what would happen if we treated our homes as our most important organization? And she came to this because she had quit her job. She was raising, I think, 2 or 3 kids. Her husband was working. She was managing all the household stuff, looking after the kids, everything. And she was broken. She felt so broken. And she felt like so much of what she does was invisible. And she tried to think of a way that she could make the invisible tasks visible. And she worked with a bunch of her friends, and she asked them to add every single little thing they do for their family and their home, even for themselves, to a spreadsheet, and they called it the Shit I Do spreadsheet. And then she summarized that spreadsheet into 100 common household tasks. And then she did a study, mainly with heterosexual couples, to see who completed most of those tasks. And I think she found it was like a crazy number. It was either 95 or 99% or something like that of all the tasks were completed by the female in the relationship. And if there was tasks completed by a man, the woman often still had to be the one to direct them to do it. And that she said behind every task, there is a thing called CPE, which is conception, planning, execution. And even when a man is doing one of the tasks, which often tended to be the trash, they executed it, but they didn't conceive it and they didn't plan it, because they'd often have to ask them to take it out, and then they take it out and then not put the next trash bag in the bin. And that's all part of that one task. So that mental labor that's on the woman, even for a task that's being done by your partner, is still residing with you. And it was a really fascinating experience, because you don't even need, children to understand this. And I've spoken to so many people in relationships that feel this. And I just think that if you're moving in with someone, this is such a great time to read that book together and start distributing, labor equally, and really understanding what is involved behind each of these tasks, and set yourselves up for success now and save yourself a lot of pain down the line. And it was really fascinating seeing her and her friends who did incorporate this, like how much it did change their marriages. So, this is something my partner Jeffrey and I are still working on. We've both read it and, understand the concept. So it's much more front of mind for us, and we get better at splitting those things up. But we still have yet to come up with our system, because I think we do need something that's a bit more tangible. And she has some cards that you can split out. And I feel like that's like a really tangible way to do it. But you can figure out whatever system you want, because the cards are like all the household tasks, and you can like deal them out to each other. But an interesting thing that you could also bring as a way to really like build your home together. And finally, we're getting a little woo-woo here, because why not? It's me. But my naturopath got me to do this. And with my old apartment, she told me to sit in my apartment and really envision what I wanted the apartment to feel like, the energy I wanted, what I wanted, like the safety of it, what I wanted to get from it. So after I was unpacked and all settled, I did like my little meditation. I lit my candle. I had my notebook out, and I like Palo Santo'd my house. And I sat and I wrote down the feelings I really wanted to feel in my apartment. And I wanted joy and friendship and laughter and safety and fun memories. And I distinctly remember saying I believed that I would likely live part of my time in this apartment with a partner, and that when I left this apartment, I would be leaving with them. And I saw that happening. And of course, 6 months later, faster than I expected, I met Jeffrey, and then nearly a year later, he moved in, and then we left that apartment together. And I think that it's just a really beautiful way to set the foundation for what you want in the space, and the intention and the energy of it, especially if someone else has lived in it. Like if you're moving into his space, you're moving into his energy. And it's definitely something you want to clear to bring in both of your energy if you believe in this stuff. I would actually, once you're all unpacked and settled, Palo Santo, sage it, whatever, and then do this exercise to really clear anything out. We are still finalizing a few little things, so we're going to do this next week, because I think finally we're getting our apartment to a place where we feel really good about it, and we want to sit down and do it. And I think there's some actual questions that you can ask yourself here. And I think once you have written these answers down, read them to each other and sit there and like breathe it in together of like, that's what you want. Because the idea is you're going to put that energy into the space. So when I was doing it solo, I sat there and thought about this and manifested that energy, or pushed it out into the space. And you can do that together too. But some things you could ask yourself is, what does home actually mean to you? How much of the space you live in reflects who you actually are? And what do you want to feel every time you walk through your front door? I think those are nice ways to look at it. Thinking about home could mean different things to each of you. And, what part of your home do you want to reflect you as a couple, which is helpful for your initial question here. And then, finally that feeling when you walk home, because I always want safety and comfort and cozy. And I like a lot of art in our apartment. Sorry, Jeffrey, love you. And just creating something that feels like a home. So good luck. The move will be great. You'll make the best home ever. And I'm really excited for you. But anyways, I think we're coming to the end of this episode. And I kind of wanted to come back to where we started today, which is really about the Artemis crew, which, if you think about their experience and how they looked back from such a far distance to Earth, and it's something so many of us will never experience, but really what they took from it, obviously there was the vastness and the unknown and the science and all of that, but really what they kept coming back to is gratitude, joy, and love, and the idea that every single person on this planet is part of a crew. And then I think today we spent this time looking at two very different questions of two people in very different stages in their life, but really they're asking the same thing: is how do I feel at home? The first person is learning how to feel at home in yourself without someone else occupying your mind and your space, and feeling comfortable in who you are and making space for yourself. And then the other one is learning to make a physical space feel like home with someone that they love. But I think both of those things take a lot of courage, and it really enforces a lot of change and for you to confront difficult feelings. But ultimately, it comes back to, I think, always just the pursuit of gratitude, joy, and love. And in the pursuit of finding space and home within yourself, thinking about it and always prioritizing gratitude, joy, and love in your life to fill that space. And then in your home, maybe those are three of the most important things you want to bring into your home as well. And ultimately, home can be anywhere if you have those three things. And I just feel like it's a really beautiful time to be building that for yourself as person number one, and this question number two of you and your partner building that together. World really is a beautiful place, guys. We're so lucky. I think it's really interesting seeing, like, when you look back on those photos of Earth and you just realize how beautiful this planet is and how lucky we are to be here. It's a pretty magical thing. It's a really magical thing. Anyways, I thank you for being here. And I think gratitude, joy, and love is just going to be etched into my brain. This is my new thing. I need to write it down, just have it in front of me. But looking forward to speaking to you all next week, and keep your questions coming. I'll do these every, month or two. So always down. You can send me questions whenever, but looking forward to more advice. Alrighty. See ya.